Round 2 of Sports Talk up next with your hosts Phil Kornblut, Will Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes. Don't leave us hanging. Join the show, 800-956-7266.
All right, coming up for you in just a moment, we'll have tonight's recruiting report here on Sports Talk, 800-956-7266. If you'd like to chime in. Clemson about to close it out up at Doug Kingsmore with a 12-3 lead on Furman as they play the top of the ninth. USC has already beaten North Florida today, 5-2. We should be able to bring you some post-game comments from Mark Kingston coming up in just a little bit. Some other baseball. USC Upstate leading Winthrop top of the ninth, 9-5. The Eagles of Winthrop, this would make them 0-4. Pretty surprising that they would open up at 0-4, but that's what they're looking at this point.
They'll be at USC tomorrow.
Indeed. Vanderbilt leads Presbyterian 2-0. They're in the bottom of the sixth there. Georgia State over Auburn. Auburn opening up 3-0, but trailing here, bottom of the sixth, 2-0. Charleston Southern, who'll be in to see USC this weekend, leading Savannah State 4-1. That's in the top of the sixth. Ole Miss is up 8-3 on Memphis in the fifth. Ole Miss off to a 3-0 start. Florida as well, 3-0, leading FAU 2-0, bottom of the third. Virginia is trailing VMI 7-1 in the top of the fifth. You know, it's hard to determine how much you make of these midweek scores when you see a smaller school beating a bigger school because of the pitching matchups, but still, when a VMI goes in and beats a South Carolina on Friday, now, unless they collapse, going to beat Virginia on a Tuesday, it's pretty good for VMI. Davidson leading Wake Forest 2-0 in the bottom of the third. Georgia Tech over Georgia Southern, 2-0, top of the third. Alabama leads Middle Tennessee 3-0 in the second. Florida State and South Florida 1-1, bottom of the second. Xavier leading Kentucky. Kentucky's 4-0. Xavier 2-0 on Kentucky, bottom of the second. And see if anybody else in our interest area playing right now. That's it. That's the scores from the baseball scoreboard at this point. Let's give you the recruiting report for tonight, and then we're going to hear from Clemson basketball coach Brad Brownell. Linebacker Samuel Brooks, who's 6'3", 200 from Miami, recently announced a final 2 of USC in Miami. Of course, it's pretty obvious about the Hurricanes' involvement, being the backyard school. He likes Mark Richt and what he has done there. With USC, it's really about the defense and how they have told him he would be used in their defensive scheme. He really likes what he's been told by Coleman Hutzler and Will Muschamp. He's never been to USC, but he will come in for an unofficial in March to watch a practice. Muschamp, he said, is in touch with him practically every day, and he likes Muschamp thus far, but he also likes Mark Richt and thinks that he's doing a heck of a job with the Hurricanes. In fact, he tore his ACL and meniscus in Game 5 last season, and he was really impressed with how the Hurricanes stuck with him after that injury and continued to recruit him and support him. So he had surgery in October, says he's on full track for recovery. Everything's looking good there. Prior to the injury, he had 60 tackles and 8 sacks. As a sophomore, he had over 100 tackles and 16 sacks. Right now, he's looking to graduate early and sign in December. He plans to take his 2 officials this summer, but he won't make a decision until his season. Some of his other offers were NC State, Auburn, Florida, Kentucky, Louisville, Michigan, Purdue, Central Florida, and South Florida. Clemson made the top 5 with offensive lineman Harry Miller of Buford, Georgia. The others on the list are Ohio State, Stanford, Georgia, Notre Dame. USC commitment defensive end Rodriguez Fitton of Atlanta was offered by Tennessee. He committed to the Gamecocks last September. He also has offers from Florida, Virginia, Louisville, Indiana, and East Carolina. Defensive back Tyler Rudolph of Waterbury, Connecticut was offered by Clemson. Some of his other offers are Penn State, Boston College, Virginia Tech, Maryland, Virginia, Michigan, Ohio State, and Connecticut. He went to Penn State for a junior day earlier this month. Per 247 Sports, USC is the favorite of defensive lineman Kalajay Cansey of Miami, 6'2", 260. Of course, the Hurricanes are also strongly involved. He and Brooks are teammates there at Northwestern High School. and he's planning to come in for a visit on March 3rd. Defensive back Marquez Randall of Stone Mountain, Georgia. He also plays receiver, and his teammates, 2020 defensive end Janier Wade and 2021 defensive back Kamar Wilcoxon, all of Stone Mountain, visited USC on Saturday. 2020 defensive lineman Jamil Burrows of Powder Springs, Georgia, was offered by Clemson today. That's recruiting. Check it out on our website, SportsTalkSC.com. On Twitter, use the hashtag STRecruiting.
Head coach of the Clemson Tigers, Brad Brownell, started his media availability today, updating us on the availability of Shelton Mitchell for tomorrow night in Blacksburg.
I guess first off, just Shelton is not going to play tomorrow night. He's just not. He's not ready, and we're hopeful that he'll be fine by the weekend. But he needs to be able to do some more things. So we're going to leave him back here, I think, and just let him have a couple more days, which I think is a good decision. And we'll push forward without him. But big game against Virginia Tech, playing very well. Very difficult place to play. A big fan of their point guard, Justin Robinson. I think he's an outstanding player and one of the best point guards in our league. Super fast, makes shots, makes other players better. They do a great job of shooting the three, spreading you out, play a little bit of small ball at times. And from just obviously watching film and listening to Buzz a couple of times, I think they put a lot of time on their defense here lately, and I think it shows. They're playing very good defense, obviously, especially in the game against Virginia. I thought that was an unbelievable win on the road. So hands full, but, another big ACC game on the road.
Is it okay to say, hey, we're fourth, but they're a game behind, and if they win, they'd have a head-to-head, over?
Yeah,
so still too early? Or?
Yeah, I mean, sure, it all matters, but, I think it was just our guys just want to go play well. And, we've been playing extremely hard. I told our team yesterday, I think, last week's one of those weeks where sometimes you work hard in life and it doesn't always pay off with wins. And that's a hard thing about sports. I thought our guys had great preparation in our practices and meetings all last week. I thought we competed extremely hard in both games, but we had a lot of basketball errors, and that cost us. I was just proud of the way they competed. But we've got to try to clean things up and play better basketball to win these games against high-level teams in our league.
Coach, Virginia Tech's #1 3-point shooting team in the league. You just played the #2 team in Duke.
Yep.
They're 46% out there. Got a couple of fouls. I imagine that's going to be pretty paramount.
Yeah, especially they do as good a job of anybody in our league of kind of advantage break. I think they get down the floor. Some of it is because they have smaller guys. And then that's obviously how they play. They space it, and they've got, a couple guys. Chris Clark is another guy that is elite in the open floor that can take it the whole way, but he also makes some incredible passes. Passing is sometimes an extremely underrated skill, I think, by media and fans. And, as a coach, you're constantly looking for that. And, that's one of the things that's too difficult for our team is our two best passers aren't playing right now. And, we've got to keep working with our guys on fundamental stuff. But I think Virginia Tech passes the ball almost as well as anybody in our league. I just think they really make extra passes. They've got a couple guys that are elite passers, and they put incredible pressure on your defense with their pace and their ability of those guys to pass and put you in scramble situations.
Okay, Brad Brownell talking about his team and getting ready for tomorrow night at Virginia Tech. Too bad Shelton Mitchell is going to miss, because they're certainly going to miss him. His ball handling skills against the that setting's going to be awfully tough. If Virginia Tech's excited, they'll have that place packed. And Buzz Williams bring the heat at you, kind of like an Arkansas team does.
They will run, they will press, and I'm sure given Clemson struggles with not only inbounding but also trying to break the press, it could be a long night if they can't get their ducks in a row.
Tech has won the last 3 in the series, and Tech is 3-1 against Clemson under the Buzzman. Buzz Williams, back in a moment.
Now back to Sports Talk, South Carolina's most listened to sports talk show for more than 30 years.
Gone final now up at Doug Kingsmore. 12-4. Clemson defeats Furman this afternoon. The Tigers stay undefeated on the young season. 12-13-0 left 9, and 4-6-1 left 5 for Furman. It's Ryan Miller getting the win for the Tigers. He is 1-0. Nick Verbeck takes the loss for Furman. Big series this weekend. You know, you might not recognize, if you're not a college baseball fan, Dallas Baptist is one of the best programs in the country. They are pretty much an annual participant in the tournaments. Never has gotten to the World Series, but I think they've gotten to Super Regional before. This should be a good baseball weekend up at Clemson.
Yeah, they were able to get the offense at least a little bit more confidence underneath them today. I know that was something that Monty Lee was looking for. You get a 6 RBI day from Chris Williams, Seth Beer, another consistent day, 2 for 3 with 2 runs scored. 2 RBIs as well for Hawkins in a pinch hit effort as well. So you kind of get some more confidence for the guys. You didn't use too many of the arms, and you got some of the guys also being able to come back for the weekend. You have everything kind of lined up. That was one thing that they didn't necessarily worry about. They weren't worried about their pitching going into this weekend series against Dallas Baptist, but they found themselves a little bit of confidence. 9 left on base is not something you want to see, but that also means you're getting them on base and you're getting them over.
All right, some other finals. Tennessee beat Lipscomb 8-5. Louisville over Eastern Kentucky 4-2. NC State defeats North Carolina A&T 9-7. UNC Wilmington beat North Carolina today 5-4. And it's gone final now. Upstate over Winthrop 9-5. And
Charleston Southern 5-2. Florida's over Savannah State.
Is that a final?
Bottom 7 right now.
Okay, Duke and North Carolina Central postponed. And speaking of Dallas Baptist, scheduled to play Baylor today, that was rained out. Dallas Baptist is off to a 3-0 start. And, you take a look at them coming into this Clemson game. They're averaging 9 runs per game. Let's see who they beat. Well, they beat Monmouth 3 times, 7-4, 5-3, and 15-4.
Nothing wrong with Monmouth.
Yeah, but they're not a baseball power by any means.
Amen.
So this will be a good test for Clemson, though, this Dallas Baptist team, not knowing a heck of a lot about them, but just knowing a little bit about their history, and they're a pretty solid baseball program.
The Winthrop team starting out the way that they've started, that's a little uncharacteristic for them, is it not?
Absolutely. I think they were the preseason favorite in the Big South, or right up near the top. So, but it's early, and teams have a chance to straighten things out after a sluggish start, and no doubt they will. They've been good for many, many years. If you just joined us, South Carolina beat North Florida 5-2. Also, Frank Martin was with us earlier tonight, said that they've had good workouts since the win over Auburn the other day, and they got after it pretty hard, he said, getting ready for Georgia tomorrow night. He said that Corey Holden asked about him. He couldn't say one way or another if Holden could return next year or just what's going to happen there. He said they have not sat down to have that conversation. Kind of said the same thing during the Rakeem Felder saga, where he said, we'll sit down and have that conversation about his future with South Carolina at some point. That turned out to be in December.
Right.
But he wanted things to get worked out with the kid and get his head on straight. Maybe it's going to be the same sort of it's different. I mean, it's a different it's different factors involved. But, perhaps look, if you're Corey Holden and you can get yourself healthy, you got to believe that you can help the South Carolina basketball team. You don't want to transfer because you've only got 1 year of eligibility left. So, I mean, there's really no place for you to go.
I mean, you could be a grad transfer if he's in line to make that happen, because he's a 4-year player. And
yeah.
The reason I think why Frank was so cryptic about it is the fact that, number one, he wants to be able to make sure that he can contribute anywhere, let alone South Carolina, because of his health. And if he can, then he's going to look at his own roster and see, okay, what is the most responsible way to fill this roster spot? Is it 1 year Corey Holden or 4 years of somebody else that we can get in recruiting down the line in the late signing period?
Let's go to Wes in Florence. Get back on the phones here on Sports Talk. Hello, Wes. How are you?
I'm pretty good. Will, were you in Florence today by any means?
I was not.
because I saw a Missouri tag on a
Huh.
Volkswagen Beetle with a Gamecock sticker on the back.
That is not me. I have not had a Missouri tag on my plates since 2014. So
At least you're a good enough man to
But-
come in the state and actually change your tag, unless other people like here in Florence that still have the out-of-state tags because they don't want to pay car insurance.
I do not I did not make that happen. And again, that was a pretty hefty penny for me to pay because in Texas they do not have personal property tax in Texas for your car. So that check, having to write that to the folks to the state of South Carolina, was a little bit of a heavy pill to swallow.
But you do have the Gamecock sticker on the back of your car.
Orange, no?
No.
Phil,
Depends on the day of the
Real
week.
quick
Yes,
question.
sir. Uh-huh.
I was looking at some of the recruiting stuff, and as a Tiger fan, I think they've only got maybe 3 commitments for 2019. I see South Carolina's got a bunch more. I know they can take a full class. Is there any, or are they just being really selective like they normally are, or you think they've already got some guys maybe committed that really haven't come out yet?
Well, they've got 2 commitments. They've got Joseph Charleston and they've got Brandon Spector. That's the 2 guys they've got in the 2019 class. They've offered about 100 guys in the 2019 recruiting season thus far. And, Clemson is usually a little bit slow to the altar when it comes to offers. They don't like to make offers until they're absolutely sure about a guy, and they also don't want to make offers until they're sure they would take a guy with his commitment. So they're doing their due diligence right now. They've got a junior day coming up on March the 3rd, and usually out of that junior day, they end up getting a few commitments maybe right then and there, or a week or 2 or so down the road. So their action is going to start picking up here pretty soon. And they'll be very active because they've got a full class to fill this time. They'll be able to sign upwards of 25 in this 2019 class.
All right, last question. Do you think, assuming Clemson loses Virginia Tech, do you think they can run off 3 straight and get a top 4 seed in the ACC? And I'll hang up and listen. Thanks, man.
That's who they got left. They got Florida State. They've got Georgia Tech after Virginia Tech. They got Florida State at home. They got Georgia Tech at home, and they've got a
Syracuse
road game up at Syracuse to close it out. Can they? Yeah, I mean, I would think that
those are 3 winnable games.
3 winnable games. Florida State's playing better now, and they kind of got things started when they beat Clemson, and Clemson kind of slopped around in that game, had a lot of turnovers, and it cost them. Georgia Tech is, at Clemson, very beatable. Up there at Syracuse, you got to deal with that 2-3 zone. Clemson did not handle Duke's zone well the other night, and Krzyzewski, he stretched the zone out. He kept pushing Clemson shooters farther and farther out. They kept taking deeper shots. That is something they're going to have to adjust to. I imagine Virginia Tech may try and do some of the same thing.
Well, Virginia Tech, what they're going to do is they're going to, again, try to use that full court pressure, maybe use a little trap. I know that Duke employed a little sag press, that they kind of use the timeline to be able to kind of pin guys between the baseline and also the timeline there. So in that regard, you're looking at a much different situation. Again, until you get Shelton Mitchell back, it's hard to see where the offensive continuity is going to come from. That's really kind of been their steady bell cow. But even with him, they were struggling against Florida State. And I don't know what it is about the fact that they can't beat a press. I mean, you're collegiate athletes in the ACC. You should be able to beat a press. You should be able to inbound the basketball. It shouldn't be an absence of one player who keeps you from making that happen.
Going back to recruiting, I was just looking at my database here, and I've got Clemson with 99 offers on the table for 2019. That's coming from kids who are tweeting out their offers as they get them, or from other sources. But I've got them with 99 offers. I've got USC with 168 offers,
and the one thing
for the 19 class. I
can't remember if you said this yesterday or Friday during the show, but the thing about Clemson is that when they not only offer you and when they take a commitment from you, they want you to shut it all down.
Correct.
So it's probably a little early to expect guys to be able to do that at this point.
That has been Sweeney's mode of operation for the last several years, and he's been public about it too. He was asked about it one time. He said yes. In fact, he said, when a player commits to me, I try to talk him out of it at first, and then I explain to him a commitment, what it means from where he sits.
Yeah.
And what it means from where he sits is that we're committed to you, and we're not going to recruit anybody at your position, but you got to be committed to us, and you have to cut off contact with other schools and all visits. If you're not ready to do that, then don't commit, which to me makes a heck of a lot of sense.
Right.
If you can't do that as a recruit, then don't commit. Back in a moment. I thought it was a great race on Sunday at Daytona. I mean, it had a little bit of its lagging moments in there as cars got lined up, single file, and went round and round for a while. But, boy, made up for it at the end. What a finish as we welcome in the president of Darlington Raceway, Kerry Tharp, who was at Daytona over the weekend to take it all in. So what's your assessment of what you saw there at Daytona on Sunday?
Well, Phil, I thought it was an excellent start to the NASCAR season. Had some great racing throughout the course of the weekend, and certainly Sunday, the Daytona 500 did not disappoint. You're right. There was a lag, a point there in the race where I think they were just kind of feeling each other out. But boy, the last 20 or 30 laps, it got very interesting. And we had a storybook finish with Austin Dillon driving the 3 car. Winning that race 20 years since Dale Earnhardt wheeled it to his first Daytona 500 win. And then, of course, the iconic number 43 with Bubba Wallace driving in that car, finishing second. It was quite an event at Daytona, and certainly there was a lot of excitement coming out of that race. And Austin Dillon driving the 3, that's pretty cool.
It was indeed. Now, I'm sure somebody in NASCAR historian or whatever, maybe maybe you know this. I was just wondering. It's cool to see at the top of the scoring tower the 3 and the 43. When's the last time they finished first, second, one way or the other? Do you happen to know?
Well, I don't know that, Phil. That's a great question. I should have researched that before I got on the air tonight. But I bet it's been quite some time because Richard Petty. His last race was in the early 80s, if I'm not mistaken. But I'm sure there was a time that it happened. But I would have to say that it's been at least 30, 35 years, maybe longer, since that has happened. So what a finish by Austin Dillon, Richard Childress Racing. But what a performance, too, by Bubba Wallace in the 43 car. And, I think it's a great way to start the season. You had guys up there racing for the win that hadn't necessarily been up there as much that we'd seen, and so I thought it was just a really spectacular start to the NASCAR season.
Level with me in a minute, KT, because not that the race finish wasn't great, because it was, and the green-white checker does provide a lot of these finishes, which are again very exciting. But in my mind, it just has a bit of a manufactured feel to it at the end there with this overtime, and I was trying to figure out a way to maybe alter it to where we get still kind of a pure race finish, and also reward guys who got their work done earlier, might have a big lead, and there was a wreck that happens behind them in the last couple laps. Is there a way in your mind to maybe alter it to where that satisfies both an exciting finish and also rewarding those who have done their work for that matter?
Well, that's a great point you bring up. It's kind of tough. Race fans want to see the race end under green,
right?
If at all possible. And certainly on Saturday, I was there for the Xfinity race. They had 5 overtimes, and I wasn't sure if they were going to finish that race or not. But
that seems like overkill to me.
Well, yeah, but maybe it is. I mean, I know they used to have 3, a limit of 3, so maybe they'll look at that a little bit. But I will say this, when they did finish the race on Saturday, the closest finish, I think, in the history of the sport. The margin of victory was, I don't even know if they had a margin of victory. It was so close.
It said it was, the timing was 0.00.
I think they had to go to the 100,000th of a second. They had to go to the tape. But, I hear what you're saying. I mean, maybe there is a limit. Like I said, a few years ago, they had a three limit on the green-white checker. So they've kind of altered that now. But, they'll look back at it, and I'm sure they'll say if there's a way they should make it better and maybe make it where it doesn't extend itself so much, they'll try to do that. But, you talk to the race fans out there, though, at the track and those that are watching, they much would rather see the race end under green if at all possible. And so, I don't know if you'll see that in a whole lot. You'll see that at restrictor plate races in particular because of just the nature of the beast. There's a lot of crashing there when you come to the white flag. But, you bring up a good point. I'm sure that's something they'll look at.
A lot of big names not in the top 10 for whatever reason. I mean, you have your Hamlin and Logano, but you got your Chris Buescher, your Paul Menard, Ryan Blaney, not necessarily a big name, Ryan Newman, Michael McDowell. A lot of big names back toward the back of the pack finishing up because primarily of wrecks. You hated to see Chase Elliott go out, Keselowski, Harvick, of course, Jimmy Johnson, not a good start for him. So moving ahead to Atlanta, a lot of these guys will be looking for some payback or some bounce back, I guess, from what happened on Sunday.
Or they will, and when you go to Daytona, Phil, it's kind of a different breed. You're going to have those accidents. You're going to have drivers that maybe get out early in the race, and now we come to Atlanta, a 1.5 mile racetrack, and I think the new rules package with the lower downforce is really going to come into play. So I think you'll see a little bit more what I would call regularity, get back into the race as far as seeing some of the top guys up front. But I will say this: I think that the Chevrolet teams come out pretty well over Speed Weeks. That new car they have, the Camaro, I think is showing that it's going to maybe be a factor and something to deal with this year. So I think it'll be exciting when they get over to Atlanta, because that's the first of a 1.5 mile racetrack, and we'll see a lot of those this season. And I think we'll see some other new faces up front this week.
You mentioned it briefly there, KT. Who in your mind made the most progress during the off season? I know it's a small sample size and it's an odd sample size because it's a restrictor plate race.
Right.
But who made the most progress in your mind from the off season from the manufacturer's standpoint?
I think it was the Chevrolets for sure. They brought in a brand new Camaro, a new car. They've worked on it for about 2 years, and they kind of got kicked around last year a little bit, particularly by the Toyotas and so forth. And so I think it's very, very exciting to know that Chevrolet is going to be back in the game, and I think they're going to be a handful when the season starts. And so you're going to see the teams like Rick Hendrick, Richard Childress, Ganassi, and those folks kind of stretch back into things. And so I think that's going to make it all the better. It's going to have better competition with the Toyotas and the Fords, but I think the Chevrolet, all in all, made the most progress in the offseason.
Well, you had a packed house. You couldn't shoehorn another person into the stands there at Daytona, so that was a great start. I haven't heard anything about the ratings. I don't know if you've taken a look at that. Actually, I did hear something about the ratings. It was down some on Fox, so that's something that has to be a little bit of a concern. And this weekend, Atlanta, where, in years past, the weather's been a little bit dicey, but it's shaping up to be a very good weather weekend. Maybe they'll get a big crowd there as well.
Well, you would hope so. Excuse me, Phil. You would hope so. They had that big packed house at Daytona. You would love to see the crowds back at the tracks like that you're used to seeing. And so I hope they have a big crowd there. And the weather cooperates. I've been over in Atlanta many times when it's very, very cold. Unseasonable, but hopefully this weekend they'll get a break on that.
All right, KT, thank you, man. We appreciate it. Enjoy the week. We'll talk to you next week.
Sounds great. You guys have a good one. Thank
you. As we're off and running here with another NASCAR season, week number 2 coming up in Atlanta for the race there. And as he mentioned, and I alluded to, the weather there has, with an early, well, in this case, a February date, or in the past, it's been early March. They've had some crummy weather over the years in Atlanta for their races. But this week, I mean, here in the Southeast, at least here in South Carolina, it's upper 70s and 80s for this week, and hopefully that will carry over into the weekend.
Downright balmy today.
Yeah, it's almost like hot. The yard is starting to look like, hey, it's time to grow again. Let's get out of that dormant stage and start popping up some green. All right, we'll be back with more here on Sports Talk. Hopefully, going to hear from at least Mark Kingston. Perhaps we will, as he has talked with the media after the Gamecocks win 2 nights. In basketball, Mississippi State up on Texas A&M late first half, 37-31 in College Station. Back in a moment.
The guys are always checking email. Send your comments or questions to talkback@sportstalksc.com. Now, more of Sports Talk from Columbia's Main Street.
We are back. Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network, 800-956-7266. Our number, if you want to join us here in our final minutes tonight here on Sports Talk, USC and Clemson. Both winners today in baseball. USC wrapping up their interviews just a little while ago, and we are efforting to get a few comments from Mark Kingston on the program as the Gamecocks improved to 3-1. How is that coming?
Still efforting.
Still efforting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Charleston Southern, by the way, has had to withstand a little bit of a comeback from Savannah State. That is a 5-5 game in the top of the ninth inning in Savannah State.
All right, let's see what else we got. Let's see if there's anything else here. Did we get a final on Winthrop?
Yes, it was Upstate won that.
They ended up winning?
Yes.
Okay. I closed out my scoreboard here, so yes. I've got to go back to the beginning and find the scores again.
Got basketball tomorrow night with both Clemson and South Carolina. Gamecocks taking on Georgia. Clemson at Virginia Tech.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's weird. That Georgia game for South Carolina. South Carolina's played a couple of games where they've played better than their result. That Georgia game is the one game where they did not play very, very well at all, but they ended up getting a victory. And, I mean, they shot less than 30% from the field. They withstood the fact that Mayton had an off night. I mean, so many things went right for them in that. They should not go into this game where they have false insecurity knowing that they'd beaten Georgia. And the other part of this is the fact that last time they went into a game where they had beaten a team was the game against Florida, and they came out flatter than a pancake on a Saturday afternoon.
Mississippi State leading Texas A&M at halftime, 41-39. Boston College and NC State going at it tonight in the ACC. It's all NC State in Raleigh at the half, 44-28. Furman and Wofford each going for a 20th win of the season tonight. Furman is leading VMI late in the half, 34-22. Wofford at home is trailing UNC Greensboro at the half, 34-31. Some other games of note. The Citadel at halftime trailing East Tennessee. Once again, the Bulldogs playing a upper echelon Southern Conference team well. It's 46-42 ETSU at halftime. It's West Virginia all over Baylor, 31-14. That's they are on the road, West Virginia. I would bet you that the foul calling situation and free throw shooting totals are a little different than they were the other night at Kansas. Ohio State leading Rutgers at the half, 32-27. Michigan State leading Illinois, 36-30. Things have not gone all that well for Brad Underwood in year one at Illinois. He's 13-15 going into the game tonight. And Butler is leading Creighton at the half, 46-34.
The Butler did it.
How about anything more with Mr. Kingston there?
Still not available to
still
us.
He's not available.
He's not available.
Not
to
available
us as of right now.
We have to resolve that situation.
We have to
get them to get it available.
Get it available.
Yeah,
it's okay though.
All right. So as you mentioned, I wanted to mention this real quick. Clemson golf team today won the Puerto Rico Classic. The good news is that Puerto Rico, I guess, is
better
recovered enough to where they can host a golf tournament. Doc Redman birdied each of his last two holes, and the Tigers won by a shot in the Puerto Rico Classic, the 75th career win, 10th in the last 3 years for Coach Larry Penley. The Tigers edged Oklahoma by a stroke. Purdue finished third.
Had to come back from 8 shots down in order to get that victory.
Yeah. So it looks like Larry Penley's got another strong team to work with this year. Coming up tomorrow, South Carolina back in action on the diamond over at Founders Park. The Gamecocks will be taking on Winthrop. Also tomorrow, you've got tomorrow being Wednesday, Presbyterian plays a second game at Vanderbilt. This will be interesting. Coastal Carolina will be at the College of Charleston. tomorrow.
Oh, very nice.
Good showdown there.
Holbrook v. Gilmore. Should be nice.
Yeah. I think that'd be kind of fun. And you've got Wofford tomorrow in baseball as well, playing UNC Asheville over at King Field in Spartanburg. So that's what the baseball looks like for tomorrow. As I'm stalling, hoping that we could get Mr. Kingston, but
I would
not going to happen.
It's not going to happen.
Okay.
I know you've been stalling. I understand.
I have been spinning my wheels.
It's not going to happen.
Not going to happen. Well, I imagine that generally speaking, he would be pleased.
Mhm.
Got a good start today from Gilreath. Got plenty of offense. Well, not plenty of offense. A fair amount of offense. Left runners on base. That won't make him real happy.
Again, that's the thing that if you're a USC fan that you want to see rectified. And again, it's one thing to get him on; it's another thing to get him in. And I know that they're dealing with the injury to Madison Stokes. That's something that they're hoping they don't have to deal with too much longer. But from South Carolina's standpoint, the thing that drives fans more crazy than anything is the fact that either you can't get them on, or if you get them on, you can't get them in. And that's the thing that they're going to have to figure out and adjudicate before they get to the conference season, because, or at least before they get to the game against Clemson, before the conference season starts, because Clemson's not going to be a team that's going to let you get away with something like that, especially with how good their pitching is.
It's going to be a very good series coming up in a couple of weekends. Vanderbilt leading Presbyterian 6-0, bottom of the 8th there. Georgia State continues to lead Auburn 2-0. They're in the bottom of the 8th. Charleston Southern is up on Savannah State now 5-3, bottom of the 8th. And VMI continues to lead Virginia 7-4. It's in the top of the 7th. And Davidson leading Wake Forest 2-0, top of the 6th. Going to see some big names go down to defeat tonight, it looks like. Georgia Tech leading Georgia Southern 5-0, top of the 5th. Xavier over Kentucky 2-1 in the 4th. And Alabama up on Middle Tennessee 3-0. They're in the 2nd. And there you go with some of the other scores from around the area to pass along to you tonight here on Sports Talk.
Clemson heads to Virginia Tech tomorrow night in basketball. That'll be very, very tough for this Brad Brownell-led team to once again go into a game without having the use of Shelton Mitchell. And, you know, when you think about how much more can this team endure, I wonder whether or not, you know, it could be something where you put Clyde Trapp in to start the game. I think we were all kind of surprised that the lineup looked the way it did, with not only Skara at the 3, but Sims at the 4 and Thomas at the 5. I know they love what Skara can do defensively, but do you sacrifice offensive continuity with the ability to obviously use one of those guys? And again, the other thing that made me, at least if you were looking at it critically, the thing that would make you kind of drive batty is the fact that you have Mark Donnell, who had 10 points in just 13 minutes. And I know that Brownell said he didn't love the fact that the way those two played together when they were on the floor at the same time. That to me seemed like a mismanagement, in my opinion.
Well, I think he wanted to go big early on against Duke to maybe try and offset some of the rebounding edge they might have had inside with Carter and some of their other bigs. And that was just a coach's decision. And, you know, you can't say it didn't work out in that they held their own on the boards.
They did.
And, you know, they had Clemson had a lead in this game. It wasn't like that, you know, they were blown out or anything like that against Duke. It wasn't until the latter stages of the game that Duke put together a little run, and Carter had some big points inside. So I don't know. Tomorrow night against Virginia Tech, I would think that maybe they would go with Trapp because Virginia Tech is more of a pressing team. You maybe want more ball handlers on the floor. You sacrifice a little bit of rebounding in that case, but you want to protect the basketball.
There were about 7 or 8 possessions that were considered either sloppy or they ended in turnovers or bad shots for Clemson. And I think that could have been limited by the fact that you put another ball handle out on the floor.
All right, that's going to do it for us tonight. Thank you for being with us. Thank you, Willie P. Professor Tom Hayes should be back with us tomorrow night. Now, Willie will be over at USC with the 6:30 tip-off tomorrow night. And thank you, Brian. Great job. Have a great night, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow.